Well, let's not stand on ceremony, mate. Let's start the show.
All right, we're back with another episode of Square Talk. I'm your host, Loris, with my co-host, Ro, where we discuss the business of cannabis. Been a crazy week, huh, Ro?
Yeah. You know, at this time, I want to kind of break with format and issue what could be considered a public service announcement. You know, the economy is not that strong, and more people are actually acknowledging there's a recession looming, and I understand how difficult it is out there for people. A lot of people are practicing what I've called financial triage, you know, picking which bills to pay and which ones to let slide for a while. You know, and it's a serious issue. So if you find yourself in a position where you can't pay your auto insurance for whatever reason, I understand. But please make it a point not to be behind me when you're looking at your phone and run into the back of my vehicle.
Wow.
And shock the shit out of me. And I'm thinking a bomb went off. You know, let's just, you know, if you know you don't have insurance, why don't you put the phone down? Okay, I just wanted to, you know, just make that statement because it's important. Just be aware of what's going on in your life and how your failure to pay attention can affect other people. That's all.
So that was one of the cruxes of your week. I see.
Yeah, you know, I'm not. You know, it's hard to ruffle my feathers, but you know. And here's another thing: don't give me all your insurance information, and then when I call the company, they talk about you have no coverage because you ain't paid them. Can you just be straight up with me and say, I ain't got shit, player? You know, we can work that one out, but you masquerading like I guess I did look kind of pissed off when I got out the car. Maybe that's why they did that. But anyway, hey folks, you know, hey, I understand how tough it can be, but let's be responsible. You know, let's be thoughtful and consider one another. That's all I want to say.
So you want to go ahead and plug in our sponsor off of that, since you're in the you're still on the soapbox.
Man, you will give me a Casey Kasem moment. Have you ever heard that clip of Casey Kasem cussing out his staff when he was doing America's Top 40?
No, I never heard that.
He had to go from talking about a dog dying out of an up-tempo record and didn't lower his register and talk about a dedication to a dead dog. So let me get off my bullshit about me getting rear hit in this traffic accident and hype myself up for a sponsor. You know, folks. Hold on. Hello, everyone out there in Square Talk world. You know, so many people suffer from disease and illness these days. It's almost as if it's the norm. And one of the greatest causes of disease and illness is the absence of nutrition. People rushing to and fro to accomplish their daily tasks, grabbing what they can eat, a muffin here, a bagel there, a hamburger here, hoping that it does the trick just to fuel them to the next appointment. But what they don't realize is that food is bereft of nutrition, and although they have eaten, their body is still malnourished. What can they do, they ask? What other option is there? Well, folks, our friends at New Maroon Naturals have made options for you that are convenient and easy to use and very competitively priced. They are the purveyors of Caribbean-based nutritional products, such as root drinks formulated for men, women, and children, as well as sea moss, which contains 91 of minerals of the 102 minerals that the human body is composed of. I can't think of a finer way to add full spectrum nutrition to your diet and recover that vim and vigor that you've been missing for all these years. Check out our friends at New Maroon Naturals at their website, www.NEWMAROON Naturals, and return to your natural state of health. All right.
I'm sure New Maroons is going to be extremely thrilled at your continued improvement when reading their.
Hey, I'm getting pretty good at this. So since we're talking about this, any other companies that would like a live a commercial read with my attention to detail and drama and performance, please let us know, because it's not a problem for me to practice and rehearse and get it right just the way you want.
I heard that.
Here at Square Talk.
I heard that. So I was at the MMCC, which is the Maryland Cannabis Commission. I was at the legislature in Annapolis, and I got to see the whole process and how they vote on laws, and see all the folks that were in the audience listening to votes, and then some of them coming for specific reasons and hearing that their reasons have been postponed, and watching them get up and storm out of the the legislature. It was quite an interesting event.
That is democracy in action for you. And I think when we interviewed Chef Wani, I think that came up, the bureaucracy and how slow it is to acknowledge the needs of the people, the will of the people, and be responsive. And I personally think they slow this stuff down until they can figure out a way to handle it without losing control. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, you want to hear slow?
Yeah.
One of the items on the list, because they had everything actually posted on a giant list on a projection screen in the legislature, and one of those was the cannabis grower and processor license applications. Now, bear in mind, people have put in these applications. The deadline was June 24th of this year. People have put in applications since, like some people, the guy was sitting next to me, he had put in his application, I think, back in May. And he owned a dispensary, but he wanted to also have be a grower. So they had pushed it. The evaluation was July 16th to August 15th. They still didn't get the license. And they were like, okay, September 3rd to 17th, still no announcements of who's getting the license. And then, of course, yesterday, which was the 26th, everybody showed up thinking, okay, they're going to announce this thing. And they've now pushed it to December. So it was just funny to just watch half the room get up and leave in anger, knowing that they were not going to find out of the 200. Actually, there's more than over 200 grower and processor applications that were put in. Because again, once you apply, you pay your fees and all that. It's still a toss-up. It's almost like a lottery.
It reminds me. It kind of gives me flashbacks of fighting a court case. I'm not going to get deeper into that, but just going there and having to come back and motions and judgments and discovery and all this stuff. Oh my God! There's no more miserable process other than getting kicked in the nuts, I think.
Well, some of these people look like they had been kicked in the nuts repeatedly since June, and they're now going to be kicked again from now till I think December. So I actually ran into one of our guests. I ran into Kevin from Uplift.
Okay, wow.
And he was one of the folks that walked out because, again, they put in their application, beginning of the year practically, and it's been pushed back again, So, but he seemed okay with it. He seemed like he was used to it at this point.
Well, in talking to him, he struck me as knowing exactly where he was going in this thing and what he wanted to accomplish. So I'm not surprised to hear that he took it well. He strikes me as being very composed in this struggle, and he's in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
And I think he has a great support base around him. Because, and not to get tangential, but being supported in what you do is oftentimes the difference between, I'm not going to say success and defeat, but not being so goddamn miserable doing it.
Mm.
When I was much younger, I thought, I had a Rambo complex where you do things on your own, and that's just so ass backward. You need some support. You need just at least no less than someone you can just, talk to about it at the end of the day. Like, man, it's some bullshit. I was in there all day. They didn't call me. I had to come back home. I'm going back in 6 months. You just need that. And I think that's kind of in our interview with him. He illustrated he had that type of support base. So even when you get these setbacks, it's not so earth shattering because you can rally and come back and keep going and get it done.
Mm-hmm. Because
this kind of sounds like a war of attrition they're waging. They just want people to kind of quit. They want to make it so difficult. And they said the same thing about the Second Amendment. And I'm not, please, folks, I'm not getting political. I'm just citing an example, please. I don't, Jesus Christ, man. Everybody gets so triggered these goddamn days, man. But it was said about Second Amendment that it needs to be made so difficult to do that people just give up and don't want to do it anymore, owning firearms. So I think a parallel may be drawn here that perhaps they're trying to make this thing so difficult that the word gets out on the street and people don't even bother with it. And only people with deep pockets and deep resources can, stick it out there and get it done.
It's funny you mentioned that because the guy that was sitting next to me was a white guy who was a dispensary. I wouldn't say he was the owner, but he was definitely in the C-suite team of the dispensary. And they're out in Germantown. And he was talking about, he shed a lot of light. You know how sometimes you just talk to people and then if you ask them enough questions, their frustration will start coming out and then they'll start telling you, just about everything. And he started telling me about the frustration of how the growers, which is why his company or his dispensary was applying for this growing license, because the growers, a lot of them are now looking to be dispensary owners. And he had a major problem with that because he felt like they were basically hoarding the best stuff for themselves. So basically, if I'm a grower and I now have a dispensary,
yeah, of course,
I'm not going to give you my good stuff. I'm going to put that in my dispensary. And then the mediocre stuff, I'm going to give you. And he was saying that that's what he's already seen happening, and that's what he foresees happening even more. Because actually, the dispensary I was at last week, where I had a tour, the owner was in the process of getting a grower's license and a grower's facility. So he was also on that page, and it was just interesting to just hear, like you said, the fact that because he kept complaining and saying, it's a conflict of interest because we can't buy we have to buy up all the cannabis in Maryland. We can't go buy stuff from outside. And he was saying how we run out. He said the dispensaries actually run out of stuff, which was interesting to hear because in Canada, even though it's fully legal, they have all these massive companies, all these indoor growing facilities. They cannot keep up with demand. Literally, like Monday, the dispensary opens on Monday. By Thursday, they out of cannabis. Like that's how much cannabis is being consumed. And I'm not sure how fast it's being consumed here in Maryland, but I definitely know from this guy who worked at a dispensary that they can't keep up. Maryland has been unable to keep up with the demand for cannabis.
I wonder what it's like to be an employee in the dispensary when you never know if you're going to get a full week's worth of work because you could be sold out of product about Wednesday and that's it for the week.
Well, they do have other things going on. They have classes, they have workshops, they have other products. So It might not be that you came, maybe the product that you want is a cream or, something else that's been processed. And, so that's available. But they were talking about more of the raw cannabis of people who, I guess, smoke it or, ingest it in some other way. But one of the highlights of the event, which the commission was congratulating itself on, was the fact that they now have 82,000 medical patients registered for cannabis.
Okay, wow. There you go. Well, that's progress.
So now you see why they're running out of cannabis.
Yeah.
Because 82,000 people coming for cannabis every week, that's a lot of folks. And they were saying how the black market is still thriving because they're like, okay, you guys run out of cannabis? Well, we can go get some cannabis over here.
Yeah, we still got you, pimping. We still got you. Yeah, but that many people is a huge movement. If they could get organized and have a platform and make demands of the legislature, you could change some of these laws because the demand is already there and the framework is already there.
Yeah, but it just seemed, I don't know, it just seemed, me sitting there watching the whole thing, it just seemed very bureaucratic because I've never understood why it takes so long for people to make, you have a group of people who make the decisions on the laws, and there weren't that many of them. Maybe there was about, total the commission, maybe 20 people, maybe a little over. It couldn't have been any more than that. And then there's maybe about 4 or 5 of them who vote on everything. They were the ones like I motion and I approve and any against, and it was just that particular group at the head of the table that were talking the most of the time. When it came down to voting on something, and it just seemed like your typical government bureaucracy, where things just take so long. And you just say to yourself, okay, why do things take so long? Why can't you all just literally get a piece of paper, write down all the stuff you all want to vote on? Okay, this one, yay, nay. The ayes have it and move on. And yet 200 plus people put in the application back in May, and thinking they're going to hear a decision yesterday, and it got pushed back again. And this is the 3rd or 4th pushback, deferral of this decision. I don't know. I just find that very interesting about governments, how they just take so long to do things. But yet, if we go to 9/11, when that happened, didn't take them long to change all the laws. Like,
now you're in a whole other category, man.
But it just shows you the difference. Because just like with global warming, they'll start talking about the stuff's happening now. Polar bears are drowning because there's no ice for them to climb onto, and the ice caps are melting, and sea level is rising. And some of these clowns are talking about, it's in 2030. It's like, why is it going to take that long? Yet when 9/11 happened, y'all did stuff within that year of the incident happening. All kinds of things changed overnight. So it's
a lot of
it's proof that you guys can move when you want to.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was already ready way before it happened.
Well, we're not going to get into that.
I want to keep a show. So
yeah, we're not going to get into that.
Remember that interview with Chef Wani? I mentioned that sooner or later, as things progress, the whole process will be as miserable as the Motor Vehicles Administration. And once again, I was right. I'm the only man you'll ever meet to tell you hate being right, because I'm right about terrible shit. But I think it's all the checks and balances and technicalities and details in the bureaucracy that are supposed to protect the will of the people that cause it to get bogged down, because I think the dirty little secret is none of these people actually know what the hell they're doing. And they're so timid and cautious about doing anything for fear of being in violation of the procedure, and it just creeps along. Our laws and our governmental structure was once very simple and effective and nimble. And over the centuries, it is so goddamn complicated to paint a crosswalk across the street, let alone introduce new processes for people to be able to get a medical marijuana card and the rest of it. It's just burdensome. Whatever you say it. And it's just overly complicated. And I really don't think these people know how to do what it is they're doing off the top of their head. I think they got to check the books and have a assistant and all this stuff going on because it's just so goddamn complicated.
Yeah.
And, and I think we have a risk-adverse society. I think we have career politicians, even on that lower level, who don't want to mess up, want to make sure they get reelected because they like that power and that prestige. And I think it all just becomes one tangled ball of yarn that is a miserable process for the people just trying to live and exercise, their right. I mean, this country is supposed to be about us. Did we forget that shit? This is supposed to be about us. And it ain't ever about us no more. It's about everything being illegal and everything being overly complicated, So we've lost our way.
Yeah, I think they forgot it's supposed to be about us a long, long time ago. So that's not.
There ain't no money in us. Hey, but listen, since that slipped out of my mouth, listen, I realized maybe about 10 years ago, playing fair and square ain't going to get you nowhere. You might have to put a couple dollars in a brown paper bag and slide it to one of them dudes when ain't nobody looking. I bet you get your shit then. And it sounds funny, but that's how this really works. And I know we're so idealistic, especially in the cannabis community, that idealism is there. But, idealism ain't never got nobody much of nothing but heartache. So you might want to get your hands a little dirty and get some money together. When ain't nobody looking, slide it in somebody's hand and say, you know what to do now. Hey, it sounds funny, but that's how anybody got what they want, and that's why they on top. You got degrees of palm. And the idealism is great when you're founding your movement and founding your culture. But then you want to get stuff done, you got to be able to threaten people and make people love you. And what better way with money or the risk of losing access to some money?
Well,
I know that's not what anybody wanted to hear, but I bet you do that shit, it'll work. And y'all won't be coming back 6 and 7 months at a time. You know what I'm saying?
Let's just put a disclaimer out. 710 Square does not advocate the greasing any brown paper bags to any officials.
710 Square TV don't, Square Talk don't, but Road do. Go ahead and hit that up. Don't talk about it once you do it, but go ahead. That's the other part I left out. You don't tell nobody you did this shit because it don't work no more. But that's how it works, though. Yeah, I covered us because now we ain't gonna talk about it once we did it.
Yeah. But like I said, it was just interesting to see the whole process, and like I said, my favorite part was when you saw how many people just basically came for their agendas. Because when you looked in the room, there were people from all walks of life in that room. I saw some familiar faces. I saw some attorneys I'd met. I saw, of course, folks like Kevin from Uplift. I saw dispensary people. I saw growers. I saw some dreadlocks. There was one guy sitting in front of me. I don't know what he was there for, but he sat through the whole thing. So I'm assuming he wasn't just there for the license part. But it was just interesting when they talked about the fact that was going to be deferred. Again, how many people just literally just got up and like, because getting to Annapolis, it's not, unless you live out there, it's not a close drive. And then once you get there, trying to park, and it was hot as I don't know what yesterday. It was almost 90 degrees, So.
Yeah. And did they have the AC turned on?
Oh, that was the funny part. Because we went to the main legislature building, and they were like, nope, this is this building down the street. We had to walk down there. So, of course, you walk in and you're sweating because everybody's dressed up. Well, most of us were dressed up. And so, of course, you're sweating up a storm, and then the door opens with the security people, and you just feel that cool air. And you just hear everybody say, yeah. Everybody felt such relief. It's like, hey, we're going into an air-conditioned building. So yes, thankfully it was air conditioned, because boy, that would have really been rough if it wasn't.
That's another game they like to play in courtrooms. Have it real hot in there,
No, that would have been unbearable without that air conditioning.
Yeah, that's why they do it. Add to your stress level, but
Yeah,
I ain't gonna get into that no more.
yeah, that would have been absolutely unbearable. But like I said, interesting process, very educational. Learned a lot, saw a lot, and this is just the beginning. Oh, here's another one. When Chef Wani was on, we were talking about the fees for the medical marijuana card.
Mm-hmm.
They voted on waiving, I think, the $50 fee, which is now no more. So one of the fees has been waived.
Oh, great.
They voted on that. So hopefully that will help some people out in terms of the expense of getting a medical marijuana card. So that was, I guess that was a good thing, because Wani was talking about how for a lot of people they blow their whole budget, because
You're getting legal and can't get this stuff.
Yeah.
But but more often than not in this country, it is very difficult to do things legally.
Well, they don't reward you doing things.
Law-abiding citizens.
Yes, they don't, because they put you through the ringer.
Yeah, they
Because
do.
when you look at who we have as president and Trump and all the stuff he's been used to doing, through his what's that guy's name, Roger Stone, and and all the other people that his henchmen that he's been used to, just getting stuff done with, and then he now goes into the highest office in the land where he's used to getting away with stuff, and it's like, oh no, now all the eyes are on you, and there are consequences. And although that's another story, whether or not anything's going to come of the impeachment that's been brought about, but like you said, he's been used to just getting things his own way, and bypassing the system and bypassing the laws and putting the money in the brown paper bags and anything else he needs to do. And then those people try to do it the right way. It's a long, drawn out process.
Well, he is a corporate CEO type of a guy, so that structure is very different than a governmental structure. He says what it's going to be in his companies and organization. So I know he feels handcuffed and on training wheels trying to do things, the bureaucratic and legislative way. Now that he's the commander in chief and president and everything, so I know he's frustrated like hell. But there's like two Americas. There's the fairy tale version you're told to believe in when you're in elementary school.
Mm.
And there's some of us who get told at a very early age, no, this is how stuff really works.
Yep.
And this is what I expect you to do, and not waste your time. And the older I get, the more I have been so idealistic in my time, and the older I get, the more I realize that all of that, it has its value at a certain developmental stage in your life, and when you determine, or even in the life of an organization. Like every organization comes from a need or a desire to do something, and you have to be idealistic when you put together your ideals and values and your planks and your platform. What do you stand for? But after that, when the rubber meets the road, it's time to get things done. You got to get dirty. It's just human interaction is too dynamic for things to stay idealistic. You got to get a little dirty to get anything done. And the best people at doing that have resolved themselves to that, to where it's just matter of fact, and it's actually moral
to them.
And others, you know what though? If we really objectively look at what the situation is and what they're trying to do in human nature and human behavior, right? Robert Greene, one of my favorite authors, has that his latest book is Human Nature, right? In which he details all these aspects of what's just natural, mechanistic human reactions to stuff that is hardwired into us for the past hundreds of thousands of years, and you ain't getting around it. I think it is moral when you you need someone to do something, and you give them an incentive. Now, that's counter to everything we're told. But when you really look at objectively at what a human animal is, and the only reason we really do stuff is because there's something in it for us, or we really believe in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think when you take that into account, and someone looks at another person and says, "I need you to do this, and I'm going to give you a reason to," whether it's a purpose or some paper, that's moral to me. And if you're honest about it, that's moral. But let's understand something. Morals are subjective and regional. You know, what's moral in Maryland is not moral in Singapore, and what's moral in Singapore is not moral in Mongolia, and not moral in Samoa, and not moral in southern China.
In Russia.
So morality is regional and subjective.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we got to take that into account too. I mean, hell, why did I join the Marines and sign my life away and was ready to kill and die for my country without a second thought? I mean, that's a whole nother story, but, you talking about a good Catholic kid that, was raised to, and then here I am ready to, like they said, Full Metal Jacket, be the first kid on my block to get a confirmed kill. Because they offered me something that they gave me a reason to.
Mm-hmm.
Up front,
Yeah.
So, I think there's a lesson to be learned in that, and a takeaway from that, you don't have to get a little, nothing works the way you're told.
That human morality clouds the issue. That's my assessment now at this stage in my life, is that and we can of course delve into that from many angles, but in this particular case, humans, when you look at just the way the world works, like you said, it doesn't work in a moral fashion. It's not moral at all. Not
universally,
no.
or globally. It's pockets of morality. Look, you and I are both old enough to remember that the morality in this country. Let me start over again. You and I are both old enough to look at what's moral in this country as of 2019 and compare it to what was moral just 25 years ago, and it's night and day. So morality is I lost the word, but morality shifts and moves. It's malleable depending upon the geopolitical situation where you are, and it can be the morality in your town, the morality on your block, the morality in your city, the morality in your subculture, the morality amongst your ethnic group. It's all in constant motion and flux. And I don't really think we can, this is going to sound horrible, but shit, you guys know I do this shit. I don't really think we can put too much value in it at the end of the day when you're really trying to get something done. I think morality is a guideline that you need to be able to depart from and return to when you have to. I know that sounded horrible.
No, but it's the truth.
God damn it, I meant it.
But it's the truth. It's the truth.
I think it's a guideline. And sometimes, and look, let me tell you something. I hate to stay dirty. I don't mind getting dirty. I don't mind being dirty. I'll wake up in the morning, I'll take a shower, I'll put all my little lotion on and stuff, trim my beard up, and I'll go out and whatever I'm going to get into that day, I might be covered in dirt, I might get to stay clean all day, I might be sweaty, whatever. And I don't mind. As soon as I can get back home, I'm getting clean again because I'm coming back home. And I think that's what morality is. That's your marker, the signposts on the road of life. This is where you come back to. But when you go out there, you're going to have to get things done by hook, by crook, or by somebody getting their ass shook. But when you come back, here's the morality to kind of readjust and realign yourself to where you need to be. The movie Blade Runner 2049, that main character, he would go out and do these jobs, and he would come back, and they would recalibrate his psyche with this process. And it was very interesting to watch. And at first it seems like gibberish and nonsense, but I got what they were really saying, that this guy has to, in order for this bullshit society that was really on his ass to exist, he had to go do some stuff, and when he came back, they had to recalibrate him to put him back together. And one scene, it didn't work, but to me, That's what morality is. It kind of brings you back to where you need to be after you've gone out there and done some things that need to be done to make things happen. I'm sure if we all review history, we'll find 1.5 million examples of how stuff really works, and it ain't the fairy tale or idealistic version of reality that we've been given. I think if people started, and I'm not trying to corrupt anybody. I just, I'm not that type of person. I'm not trying to mess up nobody's morality. This out of context, everything I'm saying sounds horrible, but you know what I'm saying? In order to get things done, as things have been done throughout the annals of history, you're going to have to do some things you don't want to do and get a little dirty. And that's and you know what? If you talk to your grandparents, maybe give them a nice glass of wine first and really talk an adult conversation. They will tell you stuff about your family history that you did not ever know and can't believe. My father's brother was doing some stuff. My mother's father was doing, and I'm talking about the game and street hustles and stuff. But I don't know if we're ashamed of that, or I don't know why we don't show our children this is what we did to get where we are, and sometimes you're going to have to do it. And then a lot of us get in situations, and we're angry and powerless because we don't know there's this whole other level out there that our family has been involved in for centuries, and that's why we're here now. And I think this is kind of like the first 2 or 3 generations that don't know that, and we're floundering, But I'm off my soapbox.
Well, since you mentioned Casey Kasem, I'm on to a different topic, but still at one that I think correlates very heavily with cannabis and popular culture. And since you mentioned Casey Kasem in the beginning, Scooby-Doo turns 50. Came out in came out in 1969.
Hey, wait, look, real question. How old is Shaggy, pothead ass, man? Scoob, where's my vape?
That's it.
Hey, where Daphne and Veronica at?
But that's the funny thing. That show, I don't think there has been any other cartoon that has sparked more debate about whether or not the writers and animators were smoking cannabis when they came up with this show, because it's just...
They had to be, man.
Because it's just too funny. I mean, you have a talking dog, a talking Great Dane, and his best friend, I guess it was Shaggy, who looks like he's been smoking both indica and sativa.
Yeah, and some shrooms too.
Some other stuff. And then the rest of them too, who are looking at this dog that's talking, so they must be on some some marijuana as well, So, but it's just funny how, again, starting a show that was spawned in 1969 and became such a huge part of pop culture globally. It's 50 years. It's just amazing that it's been that long.
Hey, but they never aired the last episode in which they all came down off of a LSD trip and realized it was all a LSD trip, and Scooby Doo couldn't talk.
You bullshitting, right?
Yeah, I am. But wouldn't that be a hell of a way to end the series?
No, that's funny. And what do you think too? Like, I think also the connection, even more of a connection, is that when you think of where cannabis was 50 years ago, I mean, the stigmas are still around, but not like back then. Back then, you were a stoner, you were a pothead. What are some of the other terms they had for somebody that smoked marijuana? It was because this was 1969, so this was what, Nixon?
Yeah. Not is it Johnson?
No.
Oh, you know what? When Nixon did Watergate was like what, 73?
It was
Watergate?
It was either LBJ or Nixon.
Yeah, I think it was LBJ because I'm a huge. Wow, this is going. I sound terrible this episode. I sound sociopathic. G. Gordon Liddy changed my life. His book, his autobiography, Will, changed my life. Reading that book, and G. Gordon Liddy was the mastermind of the Watergate break-in, and he got caught.
Okay.
His whole thing. But if my memory serves, in reading his book, that was like '73 when they got caught, and he was part of the Nixon administration.
So it's probably Johnson because this is it came out in 1969.
Hey, but we owe the baby boomers a debt because this guy. I sound terrible. I mean, but they laid the groundwork for where it is now. I mean, because think going from the 50s into the 60s, you got a lot of stuff going on. You got the anti-war movement going on. You got the civil rights movement going on. You got Woodstock, free love, hate Ashbury. You got all this stuff going on, and you got these young people talking about, hey, drugs are going to be normal now, regardless of how you feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, because at one point we had reefer madness in this country, where the whole anti-reefer campaign, which was racially tinged, what I'm saying, but nonetheless, it was the baby boomers, and I guess we should interview one, but they laid the foundation for where, hey, at least this plan is going to be normal, and I think that has a lot. Hell, it was a baby boomer that was drawing Scooby Doo, so
and doing the voices.
Yeah, Casey Kasem. So.
And Frank Welker and, all these guys. And then just when we thought Scooby couldn't get any more high, we had Scrappy Doo show up in the 70s.
Yeah, 79, but he was straight.
Scrappy would be 40 today.
Scrappy Doo is 40. Well, hell, in dog years, he's about 89.
That's crazy.
Oh my God!
But like I was saying, just look at how much the world has changed. America has changed. From that time, especially with relation to cannabis, because this generation does not see it the same way at all. They don't have the same hang-ups. Cannabis was something. Oh yeah, I smoked marijuana in college. That was where it was either late high school or college. That's where you smoked a joint. Whether you're Bill Clinton, whether you're Barack Obama, they all have.
But you didn't.
Footage.
But you didn't inhale.
Yeah.
You did not inhale. I dangled it off my lip.
Then what was the point if you didn't inhale?
Man, it's like Will Smith said and getting jiggy with it. I got a cigar. I don't like it. I don't light it.
For the look.
I just like the look.
Yeah. For the look. Yeah. I don't light
Bill Clinton just like the look of the doobie in his mouth. He didn't light it though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but since we getting closer to the tail end of the show, I guess I need to talk a little bit about some business. Social listening, building your brand through understanding the social marketplace. And
yeah, hit them with it.
Because now it's all about AI. It's all about tools. It's no longer about going to physically just look at your feed or what you think the engagement is. Now it's about using these tools. To discern what your users like, what they're talking about, what your customers are talking about, how many people are talking about your brand, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just amazing how many tools there are. And it comes down to, okay, well, which tools should I use and for what? Just like with these URL shorteners, like Bitly. I'm sure you've seen that one.
Bitly?
Yeah, Bitly. So basically, if you copied your Facebook feed URL or something, you'll see a whole facebook.com / a whole bunch of, gobbledygook. And you put it on Bitly, and it shortens it for you. And then you can now take that link. Or if you wanted to mask the link, maybe you didn't want people to know that the link was going to take them to Facebook or take them to YouTube or take them to your website or whatever it was. So you'd put it on Bitly. It would shorten it, give you a shortened version of the link that's hidden. And the beauty of Bitly is that you can now track who opened it, how many people opened it, where they were when they opened it, what the click-through numbers were. So now you have all this analytics, all this detail.
Wow.
Excuse me, about how the link performed. So you basically social listening, the process of monitoring digital media channels. So you can, again, devise a strategy that you can use to help better influence, your customers. So that's basically the gist of what you're trying to do when you employ social listening. So there's that word strategy again. And there's that word influence again.
Yeah. It's highly influential. But did they just put consultants out of business?
No, because again, here's the funny thing about human beings. There's so much knowledge now that was once practically trade secrets in terms of how business really worked and what went on. And all this information now is widely available. You just have to get up your butt and go do the research. And then not only do the research, apply what it is you learned. And most people don't. People will pay. I've seen people pay thousands of dollars to go to these conferences and listen to these gurus speak. And they're there recording with their phones and they're taking notes and they're doing all this shit. And then they go back home and do absolutely nothing. Or as my friends in the UK used to say, sweet F.A. So.
I do know what that means.
So putting the consultants out of business, I don't think so. I think the machines eventually will take over a lot of jobs, which they've already done and which they continue to do because they make things easier. It's more of push of a button, do this here, and it does all the work for you. But you still have to go seek the machine out. Like the machine doesn't show up and just start doing all the work.
Yeah.
So people might be asking, okay, well, why is this stuff important? Again, today it's about building a relationship. And you can't build a relationship without actually entering into a real conversation that solves problems for your followers, your users, that generates leads and gets you new business, that identifies the influencers, is that word again, the communities where all your people or the people you're trying to reach hang out, and who are the similar channels, who's the competition, and then getting feedback on everything, feedback on the content that you've put out. Is this content really performing? Do these people find it useful? And then taking all that information, distilling it down, and developing a strategy to further propel and build the brand. What do you think about that?
I think we mentioned this a couple episodes ago. I really think that those in the know, and this is why it's so important to talk to someone like yourself, because the information I call what you do esoteric information. I know that word has been linked to the occult and spiritual practices or martial arts or just hell the law.
It's linked to this too.
Okay, well, a lot of the stuff, and I hope people appreciate you because you really give a insight into how these things are working, and no one really wants to talk about because they're trying to keep things exclusive.
Yes.
But the tools and how the tools that are available to the layperson in this day and age and how they exponentially increase their reach are absolutely amazing. But I think one of the greatest hurdles still left to leap over is this idea that you can do things you think of you're just going to have to get outside of your comfort zone and have some conversations with people. And you can do these things. You can make these businesses. You can sell these products. You can reach out to these people. You know, the old paradigm of things being cost prohibitive, that's dying rapidly. And you know, and so, you know, the previous generation had these great imaginations because they played outside and drew and painted and they didn't have a toy for every goddamn thing. So you made toys or imagined stuff, but things were cost prohibitive, and there was a glass ceiling, and there was doors that were locked shut you were never getting into. And now the new generations have access to everything, but they're not in the habit of thinking. And so it's yin yang. It's the yin yang of being non-productive. And I think if we can somehow have a meeting of the minds and the generations and fuse those two aspects of these generations with this imagination, with this ability to manipulate and interface with technology, a lot can get done. And I think that's a challenge for everyone listening who didn't know that. Mm-hmm. You got to stretch out of your preconceived notion of what your life is, what your reality is, and understand that you can do all the stuff now that you couldn't do 20 years ago. Mm. And these dopey kids that can't take their nose out, no offense to anyone, they can't take their nose out of their phone are just the individuals you need to be talking to, because they understand this stuff almost religiously. And, you know, so a consultant can tell you how the technology works and how it could best benefit you. But these young people who are really using this technology daily to the point of social ineptitude can tell you a boots on the ground perception of how it plays and how they interface with it on an end user aspect. So I think a lot of us, it goes back to greasing palms and getting away from the idealism. I think we can get into a pattern of thought and a trap almost. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take a lot of effort for some of us to break out of that and take a chance and try some new things and utilize some of these technologies, and you can get a lot done that was just a dream back in the day.
Yeah. Because even anybody listening might be saying, okay, well, how do I get started in this stuff? One easy way is with hashtags and phrases. So popular hashtags. And again, back to, I think, a topic we've discussed in the past in previous episodes about how people today, I think even just now what you just said, people today don't know how to have and create or enter into a conversation. And that's where it starts. You have to enter into a conversation, create a conversation. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, what am I having a conversation about? Well, you need to identify the sentiment around the conversation. So if we're talking, this show is about cannabis, so we're going to keep it cannabis related. You'll find a popular hashtag, let's say minorities in cannabis or legalize it or, you know, something. You identify the sentiment that you want to have a conversation about. And you just start going in there and commenting, but not just commenting like, okay, nice post, actually having a conversation or sharing a point of view, which the owner of the post and all the other people who commented will see and will read, because they all get notified when somebody writes or comments on a post, and they'll engage in a conversation. And I think another thing that people don't do is when they talk about companies, they don't use the @ mention, that @ sign, you know, that you have on your phone. That @ sign, you can @ mention a company when you're talking about them. So if you're trying to get a company to be your client, or you're trying to have a conversation with, you know, with the days of, oh, well, I don't know who to talk to at the company, you can just make a comment and @ sign the company. And whoever is running the social media or managing the social media for that company will see it, because they'll get pinged because you @ signed them. And then that now starts a conversation. And then they can point you in the direction of the C-suite team or whoever it is you need to talk to specifically for, you know, what it is you're trying to do. So, like you said, things are so much easier now. It's just that you have to put the effort in to get the results. It's almost like nobody can go work out at the gym for you and then come back. Say, okay, yep, I did your legs, your arms. Should be seeing all that next week. you know, it doesn't work like that. You have to do it yourself. And the problem is most people, they're happy to get the information, but very few will actually act on it.
Very few want to get dirty.
Yeah, you can look at it from that. Yeah.
Look, let's make a 710 square T-shirt to say "Get Dirty" on the back. Because when you go to the gym, you get dirty, you get sweaty. Some of that plates is rusty and stuff. But going to the gym and starting that conversation,
you must be at CT's gym.
Oh, yeah, it's always my motherfucking set. But but going to the gym and starting that conversation, someone gives you a pointer. When you do your lateral raises with the dumbbell, point your thumb to the ground and your pinky to the sky, and that'll hit the posterior delt, and then you got boulder shoulders, right? But you would have never known that without starting the conversation. And it plays into so many aspects of life. Just being social, you're gonna stumble upon information and opportunities and access to things, and it couldn't be easier than with this @ you're talking about and how to use that. But it's just an example of just taking a risk and being social and getting a little dirty with it, Hell, none of us would be here if our parents didn't get a little dirty with it.
True. True. No truer word spoken.
I love getting dirty. And I clean up afterwards. But yeah, I think the social aspect has been lost in our society. And I think the winners are going to have, those who win are going to be those who will never lost it and you do it like I do, like we do. But those that reclaim it. And young people who see it so necessary and start to do it. There's a magic with being able to walk into a room and work the room and talk to people and connect with people and affect people and just make yourself known for who you are and your vibe and your energy and your enthusiasm about what you do.
Oh yeah,
and have a tool.
It's a skill.
It is, yeah. But then to couple that with this tool you're talking about, it's almost like there's no limits in a sense. I know there are, but it's almost as if in certain aspects there's no limits.
And plus,
unless you think they are.
With being social, 33% of people today trust ads.
Yeah.
33%. 74% of consumers rely on social media to inform their purchasing decisions. And 90% of consumers trust peer recommendations. So recommendations from their friends, recommendations from family, recommendations from strangers. When I go to Amazon and I'm looking at a product, I remember seeing products that I like, just you like to look, and then you read the description, like, yeah, I want to get that. And then you just scroll down to the bottom and you just read the feedback from people who actually bought it. That's why I make my purchasing decision. Because if I read 3 or 4 bad reviews, this thing wasn't what I thought it was, it doesn't work, it blew up when I plugged it in, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not buying this product. So peer-to-peer recommendations, that's 90% of consumer trust right there.
Yeah, I'm guilty of the same thing. If I see bad reviews, I just think that's the standard of way of purchasing things online now. I remember there was a day and age where people were afraid to purchase online because you didn't know what you were going to get. I think those reviews are so powerful; they've enticed people to actually purchase online and be more aware of what they can expect to get.
And then just letting go of the past. I'm sure you've heard of what happened with Thomas Cook, the oldest travel agency in the world.
I did indeed.
Over 100 years old.
And my first thought in my head was, who's still using a travel agent?
Well, here's what took him down. Because I was saying to myself, how does a company that, they had some super cheap deals to Cyprus, Greece, Turkey, you name it.
So cheap. They ain't so cheap now.
No, but here's that's not what killed them. They refused to compete and to change the way they did business. They were still operating on the business model of let's have a luxury looking store and the people come in like they did in the 80s and the 90s and sit down with their travel agent, and I'm sure they did in the 60s and the 50s because the company's been around for 100 years. And the travel agent pulls out all these brochures and nobody does that shit today. They go on Priceline, they go on Travelocity, they go on Expedia, and they're looking at deals side by side. Like, okay, here's all the deals for where I want to go. I'm trying to go to Cyprus. Here's all the deals for Cyprus. Now, if Thomas Cook had done the same thing, where they said, okay, here's all the deals for going to Cyprus. Here's ours. Here's what you get with ours that's better. They didn't incorporate that type of system. So, of course, their revenue started going down, and they were getting supplemented by the government and, of course, the banks through loans. And then the government said, we're not paying anymore. And then the banks said, we're not giving out any more loans. And now you had all these people who were on vacations who had paid their money. Imagine going to a hotel and you're ready to leave, and the hotel calls security, and there's a barricade, and there's about 20 or 30 other people, and they're like, yeah, you can't leave because Thomas Cook owes us some money. And if you don't pay, and they're gone out of business, and if you don't pay us, you're not leaving the hotel. Can you imagine?
Nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
But that's because they refuse to change with the times.
Yeah.
So
all those. Just saying that. I remember. Now just saying this. I remember a time when I was getting a plane ticket and I had to drive into D.C. at the. I forget which airline it was, but they had their local office, and I drove into D.C. and parked at the meter and went in and bought a ticket from the lady for my round trip, and I had my physical ticket, and then I went back home, and it was time to fly out. I went to the airport with my luggage and my physical ticket and flew out that way. And to think that you just log on and buy your ticket and check in when you get to the airport, I mean, it's like Star Trek.
Virgin America, before they sold themselves to Alaska Airlines. I'm not even going to get started on that. Their whole ticket was a damn, not a hashtag, a QR code. Like everything. When I got to the airport on my phone, I'm just pointing at devices, and you hear a beep, and you move into the next stage. And the thing connected with my Google Calendar, and I mean, just amazing technology when you think about it. And then Thomas Cook is still trying to get people to come into a luxury store in 2019 to book a flight.
That prestige, though,
Okay, well, close down some of the stores, do the online thing. If you want, close down 90% of the stores, keep 10% of the stores, and it's for those who still want to come to the store, and do the rest online, and you guys would still be in business. I mean, that's just amazing that a company over 100 and something years old, proverbially the first travel agency I think in the world, it's the oldest travel agency, goes out of business because they refuse to adapt. Uber is now the largest ride-sharing service or cab service in the world, and they own 0 cars. Airbnb owns 0 houses. They're about to launch an IPO. So you got to change with the times. And on that note, since we're about to wrap this up, I just want to drop some tools for, again, people saying, okay, well, what should I use? So if you're using network search features, so you want to manage your Facebook, you want to manage your Twitter, you want to manage your social media platform, you might want to try one called Hootsuite. That's HOOTSUITE, which allows you to manage all your social media in one console. If you want to monitor, so you put out the content, you say, okay, well, I want to see how well this content is doing. what I need to improve, what kind of activity, who's sharing, et cetera, et cetera. You might want to check out Spreadfast, which will allow you to monitor. That's SPREDFAST. And then you want to also check on trends. What are the popular conversations happening surrounding your brand or your business that you're trying to push, propel and push forward. You should check out Sprout, SPROUT. And of course, we already talked about Bitly, which was the link shortening service, which also tracks the click-through rates and then maps them out. So that way you can see who clicked on what and how many clicks it got, and you can gauge the effectiveness of your campaign. So there's some tools you could use to help build your brand and help you create more engaging conversation around your business. So that's it. That's it on the tools for me. Ro, what's the last word before we get out of here?
Like and subscribe and give us a thumbs up. I think what Loris and I do here is phenomenal. I listen to it and I'm entertained and educated by it, and I did the shit.
Ruby
so
Roo.
if you So, for all those within the sound of my voice who value, if you don't like us, then I don't give a fuck about you. But all of those who value what we're doing here, just take a second, share it with a friend, a like-minded friend, and hit us with a thumbs up. And that will help us get this content out to more people. And we can start to help people improve their conditions and better educate people and share this message, because I think it's very necessary. I think we do God's work here, and we need your help to connect with more people. So I know I normally say something real philosophical at the end of the show, but for the sake of time, I'll save today's message for next show. And hey, like and subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Thank you.
And comment. All right, people.
Yeah. yeah, comments.
Comments. We will comment back. And
I will.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, see y'all next time on another edition of Square Talk, where we discuss the business of cannabis. Peace.